Welcome to episode 175 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the Fireworks or Not edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host, and I'm with my co-host, who is on the road this week. He is an iRacing Indy 500 champion, a computer genius, a gentleman, and a scholar, and one of Jacksonville Jaguars' biggest fans. His name is Josh Fine. What's going on, brother?
Hey, I'm doing great, Phil. Of course, on the road this week, but able to make it in here. But definitely a interesting weekend of racing at Nashville and all that stuff. So ready to get into it.
Yep. We'll go over all three major series of NASCAR that ran at Nashville Super Speedway. Ross Chastain gets his first win in 14 months at Nashville. Dominant, honestly, in his performance, even though the two main teams that have done work this season, aka Toyota and Hendrick, stood out. AJ Allmendinger won the XFinity race in a wreckfest. Carson Hocevar gets his second win of the year in trucks with 3 races to go in their regular season, so that's a huge win for him. We'll go over some of the things that have gone on in the world of motorsports in the last week. In between the Roundup, which is busy, we'll be talking about MotoGP and Moto2 at Assen, which saw Pecco Bagnaia get yet another win. Fabio Quartararo winning a race is not something that really happens anymore. We'll talk about the 6 hours at the Glen, which saw Porsche initially win the race overall, but they got disqualified, and the BMW ALL team got the overall victory. And then the Lexus team won in both GT categories. Talk about NHRA, WRC, Formula E, F1 Academy. We'll start, and we'll also do previews for World Superbikes, Indy Next, FIM World Supercross Opener, and F2 and F3 at Austria Red Bull Ring, which will lead into the very brief Austrian Grand Prix preview. The Honda Indy 200 at Mid-Ohio. We'll definitely spend a little more time on that one for IndyCar. Cup and XFinity at the Chicago Street Course. What will probably be a clusterfuck. At least one of the days. Personally, I'm hoping the Cup race is a cluster and the Xfinity race is just bore fest because nobody's really going to care. And then Josh will tell us all things going on in the world of sim racing, iRacing, and gaming in his sim segment, and we'll close the deal. But first, let's, before we go and move on to anything else, give our condolences to Jimmy Johnson and his wife Chandra at this time after the terrible news that came out earlier today for what went on where his parents or his in-laws and their grandson were murdered in a murder-suicide. Woman they said found one victim. So we're not going to get into all of that. We're not going to get to all the details of it. It's an ongoing investigation. It's a horrible thing. But our prayers, condolences to Jimmy Johnson, Chandra Johnson, their children, the whole entire family at this difficult time. Jimmy Johnson was going to race this weekend at Chicago, but has withdrawn from the race. But so we'll see what happens with him and how long it'll be, and if we'll see him anytime the rest of the year. A lot to deal with. Unfortunately, a very sad situation for him and his family at this time. But in trying to change it up, trying to spin it back to the recent results, the events, NBC comes back for the first time in 2023, immediately does a better job of broadcasting NASCAR than Fox. But I mean, to be fair, are we really shocked? Fox doesn't really know how to broadcast anything well. And I mean, they didn't really have a lot to work with this weekend in terms of the races at Nashville between the Cup and XFinity, but Ross Chastain said he had taken a few weeks off, essentially from being up front. Everyone said, oh, well, Rick Hendrick neutered him and all these other people. In the end, he qualified on his first career pole, was up front for both stages, led the most laps, passed Martin Truex for the win. It was a dominating performance for Ross Chastain, probably the best performance he's had in his Cup career, and quite possibly the best performance he's ever had as a driver in one of NASCAR's top 3 series. Ross Chastain with the victory from pole, Martin Truex second, Denny Hamlin, William Clyde Elliott the second, and Larson the top 5. William Byron 6th, Christopher Bell 7th, Eric Jones from 23rd to 8th for Legacy, Kyle Busch and A.J. Allmendinger, who we'll talk about here in a little bit, rounded out the top 10. When Tyler Reddick won the first stage, but then had a tire fall off during one of them pit stops, and that basically ruined his day. Ryan Blaney hit a wall that didn't have a safer barrier and was the only person that fell out of the race. He comes out and says that's the hardest that he's ever had. So credit to NASCAR for having a clean sheet of paper to make a race car, and then making a GT3 car with Dallara, who's not been known for making great race cars in general, and making a car that's so stiff that that one guy's retired, and there's been a lot of sheet time now with these drivers. And the fact that Blaney passed concussion protocol is surprising to me. I kind of figured when he said all that and the way everything went, I thought he was going to need a fill-in this weekend, which would have been interesting to see who the hell they would have gotten to fill in. Probably been Zane Smith. But thankfully, Blaney is all right, and he'll be there this weekend. Other than that, nothing really significant in amongst that. But Ross Chastain solidifies himself in the playoffs, Josh. Gets his first win of the year, goes and moves himself right back into 5th in points based on the playoff standings. Tied for second in points, actually, since Martin Truex is the overall points leader. So he's in the mix. What is it, 12 and 18 points out of the overall lead going into a wild card race. But Ross Chastain, we haven't seen Trackhouse win in a while. Convenient place for them to win. They're one of their home tracks to go and win at Nashville. And, I mean, people want to go and no-sell Ross Chastain, but when he has a piece, he had to make moves to win that race, and he did. And the guy finished second in points last year. So and hail Melon or not, he finished second in points last year. He has now solidified himself in the playoffs, Josh. And whether it's Hendrick or Gibbs or whoever, you're going to have to worry about this guy.
Yeah, I mean, Ross Chastain, first of all, early in the season was leading the points, but I think really he was leading the points based off of accumulating stage points and stage wins. So I think that a lot of those points that he accumulated there were just carrying him throughout the first third of the season, and up until the Darlington race back in the middle of May on Mother's Day. It seemed like maybe he was the guy leading the point standings and possibly a championship contender, and then had his deal with Kyle Larson putting him into the wall at Darlington and kind of fell off the face of the earth. And we were all like, well, where the hell's Ross Chastain? Now, all of a sudden, a year after his Gateway incident with Denny Hamlin, comes back to that race and runs mid-pack the whole way. And we're all like, well, where the hell is this guy? And he's completely disappeared, and it's like he's not even good anymore or even competitive. And now off week comes along. Now we're here at Nashville, comes out, wins the pole, and wins the race. Very competitive, very dominant throughout the entire event. So very convincing win, first true oval win. As they've mentioned, won at Coda last year and at Talladega, the Super Speedway oval. So first true oval win for him in the Cup Series, and finally a very convincing one where he led 99 laps and won the pole. So yeah, it was a really good effort by him, and he had a really good car. Probably could have won stage 2 if he had a few more laps. He was catching Truex and Hamlin there to end that stage, but just kind of ran out of time there, and ended up getting up there for stage 3 and was able to take the lead off of that, and was able to on to the lead throughout the end of the stage 3 race with pit stops and all that took place during that last part of the race. Held off Truex there at the very end. Used the ability to take away Truex's line throughout that, and Truex ended up burning their right rear tire. So couldn't, he wasn't able to get up there and really get alongside. Truex tried to do everything he could, but couldn't get up there. So yeah, definitely a good effort there by Trackhouse. I think they could have been up there, even with Daniel Suarez, and he had issues too, but seemed like they were both primed for a good weekend. So and they win at their, I guess what they're calling their corporate home track, based on where Trackhouse is doing business now. I think they're still based in Charlotte as far as the shop is, but I think eventually they're going to put all their operations out there in Nashville and try to kind of claim that as a home track, which is kind of, or area, which is kind of interesting because obviously not 99% of all NASCAR teams are in Mooresville, North Carolina, or in that surrounding vicinity. So interesting to see how that works. But and the Trackhouse team, Ross Chastain, seems like they're back, and yeah, like you said, now has his spot in the playoffs sealed. So we'll see what they do the rest of the way if this run continues and he's able to run up front. Or does he go back to kind of what he was the last couple weeks, and this one's just a one-off, but he's in the playoffs, and I guess ultimately we're going to see if they have this type of speed come the playoffs time in September, and if they're able to maintain that and make it back to the Final Four where they were last year.
That's something to figure out. I mean, we got 9 races to go in the regular season now. A few wild cards, including this coming weekend, multiple road courses, Daytona to be as the closer, Atlanta. So 2 super speedway type races. You have 3 road course races, and then you have the one-offs like New Hampshire, Pocono, Michigan in there as well. So that basically covers the whole entire summer season leading into the playoff. But I think with Ross getting that victory the way he did, the focus is going to be on Daniel Suarez now, who has been off for most of the year, and trying to solidify him in, because I think the win will really matter now. Last year, with the way the parity was in this series, 19 different drivers won, 15 drivers won prior to the start of the playoffs. So, I mean, that this is not the same deal. Hendrick and Gibbs have kind of done what they've usually done for many years. And I think that if you can win a race and you're not in one of those teams, it's going to be a big deal. You're going to make the playoffs for sure. And that discounts the fact that Clyde hasn't won, Bowman hasn't won. Bowman's on the bump spot at the moment, points-wise. I think he just got, he's still in the bump spot. And then you got Keebler Gibbs, who's on the right on the edge there. So entirely possible. Only 10 points behind Suarez. Actually, there you go. So going through the points, Martin Truex, the overall points leader, over William Byron and Ross Chastain, tied for second. And then you have Kyle Busch, 4th in points. Just bring it up this way. Or Kyle Busch is actually 5th in points. So Truex, Byron, Chastain, Bell, Busch, Harvick, Hamlin. Harvick's the highest in points for somebody who hasn't won yet. Hamlin, Blaney, Larson, Logano. Then you have Brad Keselowski, Chris Buescher, the RFK guys, Tyler Reddick, Richard, 1776, we are the champs. Bubba Wallace and Daniel Suarez, Darrell Walsh Jr., Daniel Suarez. You're 16. Bowman's 2 points back. Keebler Gibbs is 10 points back. And don't discount AJ Allmendinger, who we're going to talk about here in a few moments, with the way the schedule's laying out here through the next 9 races. A bunch of good racetracks for him coming up. Michael McDowell had a nightmare race at Nashville, was able to somehow make it back up a lap down, last car 1 lap down in 28th. So he lost points to the cutoff. Was he's 27 points out of the cutoff. So, right now there's like 3 or 4 guys that are right on the edge there with Suarez. You got Corey LaJoie there who contended for a win at Atlanta. You have Gumby Cindric who can win at any road course. Justin Haley actually had a decent weekend for most of the weekend and then fell back to where he usually does. Priest has moved himself up. Clyde is now in 25th in points, so that's something to look at. Once you get past, I think, Michael McDowell points-wise, you're going to have to win a race to get in. And when you look at a lot of these guys, I think the only person that really is likely to win a race amongst that group without help or a miracle is Clyde. I'm going to work under the assumption that both Elliott and Bowman somehow or another win a race here in this next 9 races. The win's going to matter more, so I think there's going to be a lot of destruction coming as we go along here towards the end of the season. Toyota definitely, I mentioned that, were dominant. You had 3 Gibbs cars in the top 10, and then you had 5 in the top 15. The only one that didn't finish up there was a guy who won the first stage. But it's a home game for Toyota, to be fair, because they manufacture trucks in Tennessee. We'll see what they're able to do this weekend. Of course, Tyler Reddick won at COTA. And then Hamlin went out there at Snoroma and Truex. It was Truex that got the victory there, yeah. So Toyotas are pretty strong at the road courses. Something we'll see as we go along. Keep on talking about AJ Allmendinger, so we will now. Oh, wow. So just before I go there, Sheldon Creed got a 25-point penalty for wrecking Zane Smith because of his radio contact, what he said on the radio. So he basically announced his intent to run over Sammy Smith.
Yeah, Sammy Smith.
What did I say? Zane Smith?
Yeah, you said first Zane Smith, but then
my fault. Yeah. So all these damn Smiths. It's like, well, being here in Edison and having a last name Patel. We went there. That's huge for Sheldon Creed because he hasn't won yet. Right now he's okay in points, but I don't know if they altered, if they're showing the altered point standings after the penalty. He was it Sheldon Creed was at 444 and now he's at 419. Okay, yeah. So he dropped 1 spot essentially after all of that, but it's not a good thing. We'll get into the Tennessee Lottery 250 though. AJ Allmendinger gets the victory, makes a pass late there to get that win. There was really 4 drivers, Chandler Smith was the dominant figure. He won stage 2. The stage 1 winners, Keebler Gibbs, we'll get into that in a moment. But it was a wreck fest at Nashville in this Xfinity race. Chandler Smith probably had the best car, other than him and Gibbs probably had the 2 best cars. Neither of them had anything to show for it. Cole Custer got good stage points, led the second most laps on the day. Allmendinger, Riley Herbst, Sam Mayer from 34th to 3rd. Austin Hill, who hit everything but the lottery. Josh Berry in his first weekend after announcing that he'll be going to Stewart-Haas and taking over the 4-car. In 5th, John Hunter Nemechek. Both those guys came out from mid-pack. Zane Smith driving for Sieg RSS Racing, driving the number 28. Blue Oval City Ford gets a 7th-place finish. Stewart-Haas prepared car. Hemrick from 33rd had his elbows up for sure to 8th. Custer and Parker Retzlaff continuing his progression. Kligerman led 22 laps there on a strategy. Chandler Smith, Jeb Burton, who's locked into the playoffs at the moment, 13th. Moffitt got stage points. Allgaier, quiet day for him. So it was also for Sheldon Creed. But yeah, Allmendinger, Cup Series driver, going and winning that race. Not really shocking. Probably wasn't the Cup guy we thought was going to win per se. Just kind of checking now out of curiosity. I didn't even type in who. All right. So that was last week. So he got hurt. And okay. So you picked Barry and I picked John Hunter Nemechek. So it didn't work out. Moffitt and Hocevar. Well, Hocevar got taken out as collateral damage from one of the hits that Austin Hill gave. I mean, it wasn't anything of great significance, this race. It's a lot tougher with the Xfinity cars. I think there was a lot of anxiousness coming back, running into each other. A lot of inexperience kind of showed. And a guy who has a lot of experience in AJ Allmendinger benefited because probably Keebler Gibbs was going to run away with this race if Austin Hill hadn't cleaned him out there, Josh.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of action that happened in this one, and I tried to tune in for a bit there, but it's just a lot of cautions and everything, and this race definitely had a lot of that. A lot of guys running into the back of each other, guys getting loose in the middle of the corner, and getting into guys. And then you got, like you said, Sheldon Creed doing a little intentional wrecking there, possibly, or something like that. And you had guys at the end, like you mentioned Hemrick. Well, Hemrick, I think, was in the top 3 at the end of the race, but then he got jacked up by Austin Hill in the middle of 1 and 2 on the last lap, and I think then he fell back to 8th. So he definitely had a good run going there. Still a good run from where he came from, of course, but probably could have finished a little bit better. And yeah, I mean, Allmendinger kind of got the benefit of the doubt there and was able to pull away at the end. Had a good battle going with Parker Kligerman with the last part of that race, but last caution there, Chad Chastain spinning out. They threw the yellow for that, and then another yellow for Josh Berry and Chandler Smith getting into it. So you have that, and then big wreck on coming to the final corner there, off the final corner with coming to the checkers, big wreck there. So a lot of action happened in this one. I think this one more of a lot of cautions happening out of incompetence of the field, I think you want to say, because everybody, a lot of inexperience and possibly jitters coming back from a off week. And then I mean, Nashville, I think is kind of a tougher track than what most people realize. I think also concrete surface has something to do with it as well. I mean, we've seen concrete tracks provide a lot of action before. Dover concrete track, place that in the past we've seen a lot of yellows in past races there. Bristol, another concrete arena that's produced a lot of yellows, and of course it's short track, but I think that, but the point is concrete seems to be a type of track where we see a lot of action, but seems like Nashville kind of fits, but in that regard. But yeah, I mean, Allmendinger, I don't think either of us, like you said, expected him to come out and win, but I mean, this is kind of interesting in a way with all the cautions happen, but yeah, it was definitely way more cautions than would have thought would have happened there, and definitely too many of them. So hopefully this week, obviously there's probably a lot of cautions, but hopefully, I mean, well, it's a stage-free race in Chicago, but definitely, this race here at Nashville, way too many for the order and everything. So Yeah, I mean, not too significant of a race, but it happened, and now we just had to talk about it. So
Yeah, it's Nashville. To be fair, that's what it is. We're not really. I mean, it's not the most interesting race. I think the more interesting part is how a group that is against Nashville Fairgrounds being remade because of noise and some other crap was taking pictures off of the Xfinity race and saying, "Oh, that's why we're gonna go and spend all this government money to go and remake the fairgrounds." It's like, newsflash, Sparky, they're putting a freaking MLS stadium there too. So the notion that there isn't going to be noise and rowdy people there if Nashville FC or whatever the hell they're called ends up being good is BS. Fact that it's Nashville Fairgrounds. At the end of the day, it's not I mean, whatever. I'm not. That's like a whole other thing. Like, they had Formula Drift at Englishtown this past weekend, and it's like, for decades they had the Summer Nationals there, and I was one of the classics. We should still have that race, but a bunch of retards, excuse the word, I'm sorry, who decided to move in there, cried wolf and said, "Oh, it's too noisy." When in that area, when you're talking about Englishtown, New Jersey, and in that relative area, you had more people bringing money into that town for that 1 week that they were there than you get the rest of the year. 1 week of pain, really, for a lot of money to go towards the community. I mean, that's the problem. People don't have common sense. So fuck those pieces of shit that made it into a drift track. Truck Series event we'll get into the points. My fault. Points, Austin Hill still has 3 wins. John Hunter's a regular season points leader. 7 drivers have a win right now. Josh Berry's the best place driver that doesn't have one, in 8th. Daniel Hemrick's 28 points up on Parker Kligerman, 51 on Bruckshot Jones, and 83 on Brett Moffitt. Trucks were there at Nashville on Friday. Carson Hocevar earned his second win of his career this on Friday, and won $50,000 through the Triple Truck Challenge. The race results: Hocevar over Zane Smith, the defending series champion. Nick Sanchez, who was on pole, finished 3rd. Corey Heim, in his return, finished 4th. Bailey Curry started on the outside pole for Nice, finished 5th, so best finish I think he's had in his whole entire NASCAR career. Purdy 6th, D. Burrito 7th, Ankrum 8th, Ben Rhodes 9th, and Jake Garcia rounded out the top 10. Not a lot of movement amongst that crew. I mean, Tanner Gray, Jake Drew, Enfinger, and Taylor Gray, along with Christian Eckes, got some middling stage points. But Zane Smith won stage 1, Heim won stage 2. Heim led the most laps, but Carson Hocevar was up there the whole day and solidified himself in the playoffs, Josh. As somebody, I mean, to be fair, a lot of rumors and things that are going around are saying that he might be the replacement for Josh Berry, based on the money he brings to the table. But, I mean, we don't know for sure. But he's doing pretty well to go and get himself that victory. It was with 3 races to go in the regular season. It was a great time to get it. It's not like he was going to get knocked out of the playoffs, to be fair, but he's now 7th in points, only 11 points behind Christian Eckes. So, I mean, that's a pretty good deal for him. Career year so far for Carson Hocevar. It's just a case of what can he do with it once the playoffs start.
Yeah, he's having a career year for sure, and definitely I think, it's given him more credit as a racer. Of course, last time he won certainly under dubious circumstances, with how he won at Texas, kind of wrecking the leader to win, and now here at Nashville, legitimately winning the race, leading took the lead off the last restart there, but he definitely held it throughout the end, led the last 40 laps there. So good for him being able to pull that one off. And I think for Carson, it's good momentum as potentially a replacement for Josh Berry there, and definitely gives him better credit as a race car driver. And interestingly enough, kind of mirroring Ross Chastain, because Ross is also sponsored by Worldwide Express, so that car won in both Cup and the Truck Series, and so both those guys kind of give themselves an opportunity to legitimately say that they won on an oval now, in their respective series. So I guess that's kind of interesting there. But good effort by him. Zane Smith led a handful of laps, finishing second. Kind of continuing what he needed to be doing here, and definitely kind of getting back into the groove that he was in earlier this year, and having a little bit better luck here as of late, but came up short. Nick Sanchez also led a ton of laps there, and Corey Heim led the most laps in this race. So a lot of these young names starting to make names for themselves here in this truck series. But at the end of the day, it's the series for young guys to make their names here, and I think Carson makes himself a legitimate contender here with this win. And so I think have to probably think about the possibility of him making it a deep playoff run here, and if he's able to make it into the Final Four potentially. So definitely a guy to consider here. So this race, nothing really of significance otherwise, but I think with the way that this championship in the Truck Series is shaping up, we could see some interesting names pop up, and I think definitely Hocevar is one of them.
He is a factor because Nice has decided to pick things up this year. I mean, Bailey Curry is proof of that. Credit, he shows up and he is a driver that is able to drive lesser equipment. Generally speaking, he doesn't wreck, but to go and qualify second and be a factor in a Truck Series race when for most of his career he's just kind of been a filler. It means Nice is kind of showing up to the table. I mean, showing up to the plate. And it kind of reminds me of when Ross Chastain decided to change points and chase the Truck Series title. We'll see if his protege can go and win a Pocono like he did a few years ago. Okay, so went through. So the points, Heim leads overall points. But they're very close in playoff points. He would definitely benefit from those 15 playoff points if he could earn them. Zane Smith is second, 16 points behind. Enfinger, Ty Majeski, Ben Rhodes, Christian Eckes, Carson Hocevar, Matt DiBurrito, Matt Craft, and Nick Sanchez now in the top 10. 6 points ahead of Friesen and Tanner Gray. And that's really where the points are at. I think after that, Jake Garcia, good run for him, but from after Tanner Gray, basically you have to win a race. And in terms of the schedule, there's 2 races? I think 2 or 3 races. Yeah, it's 3 races to go. They'll run at Mid-Ohio on July 8th. Then they'll run back-to-back weeks, Pocono and Richmond, and that will determine the playoff grid. And then they'll have a week or a couple weeks off before they go to Indianapolis to Lucas Oil or IRP for the first race of the playoffs. We mentioned the Jimmy Johnson deal for his family. We also talked about the Josh Berry announcement, which I think everybody knew about, that he's going to go to the 4-car next year. It comes on the heels the day before of after I ranted and raved about Chase Briscoe's situation, being 31st in points and basically being in no man's land and his cars being the absolute drizzling shits, which I mean, his car at Nashville wasn't any different. They went and made the change, and Richard Boswell finally is back on the pit box working with Chase Briscoe. They made a change in turn with Riley Herbst. Riley Herbst even spoke about it after the race, making a reference to what Tony Stewart said in his press conference, because to be fair, both Riley Herbst and Cole Custer are ride buyers, or in the case of Cole Custer, he's a benefit of the fact that his father is best friends with Gene Haas. And then Herbst is a ride buyer. Eric Almirola basically only has a ride because of Smithfield. When you think about the fact that they could probably get more marketing money and benefit from having Josh Berry as their driver, yet they're saying we're committed to Eric Almirola. You're committed to mediocrity. It's like you're committed to the freaking Cuban Elliott Sadler. I mean, that's literally what you're. I mean, except he's less. I mean, we don't know how racist he is. I mean, he doesn't have Brett Griffin as his spotter, but then Joel Edmonds goes and agrees with stuff that Brett Griffin says. So probably it's not that far off. So I guess he's a good dad and all, but he basically is the Cuban Elliott Sadler. That's what I'm going to call him from now on until he decides to retire, because he sucks. I didn't know that Miss Hummer could. I mean, Miss Hummer was terrible in that car. I mean, Miss Hummer was terrible in most cars. She wasn't terrible on her knees, of course, but when you have Eric Almirola driving around being mediocre, nobody cared when he was in the 43 car, but being mediocrity, driving for Stewart-Haas Racing is a different thing, even though Stewart-Haas is, I will give him this, the fact that Stewart-Haas is probably the worst multi-car team in this series. And I'm giving a break to Legacy because Legacy is in a freaking transition phase, and now they're in a different flux, so they're definitely the worst multi-car team. That isn't like a shithole organization. Let's go and check. Let's see. Was there anything else that came out? Warning sign. F1 person. Oh yeah, that's right. Ryan Reynolds and his
they bought into
Matt
Alpine.
were part of a group that bought into Alpine. Bought a 24% stake in Alpine. I mean, we heard about it. A big deal. They made a whole big deal about it on Formula1.com. They own a team, and I don't know what level of English soccer that they've advanced up a level. As a Leeds United fan, they're not at the championship yet. So, I mean, that's after 3 years of being in the Premier League. So, we'll see if Wrexham ever gets there. But those guys invested in Formula One with their group, that influx of money. So that's something. I guess that's something to look at. Maybe.
It's
I don't. Yeah, I mean that's a lot of money. I mean, getting those kind of investors. The one thing I felt when I heard that, I'm like, why wouldn't you just invest in Haas? Because they need all the help they can get, and they need to have new perspectives coming from the outside, trying to help them to get somewhere towards that upper midfield. Because the reality of the world is they're not a manufactured team. I get Alpine's trying to make cars and bring them to America, which they announced they're gonna here in the next 3 or 4 years. But I think there would have been a better opportunity, a better connection as American actors to go and join Haas. But whatever, it is what it is. All right, GSP Roundup time. Gonna go and try to accelerate through this. I'm guilty of taking way too much time most of the time. Go to MotoGP. Let's do MotoGP first. I got a bunch of clips open for Williams merch because I have to support Logan Sargent even though he doesn't get points. MotoGP, Pecco Bagnaia ties Andrea Dovizioso for wins, and he also is the first back-to-back winner at Assen since Valentino Rossi. So, I mean, when you do something that the GOAT of motorcycle road racing has done, credit to you. It's looking like, it's looking like it's going to be a battle for, you're going to have to run through the defending world champion. Bagnaia is 35 points ahead of Jorge Martin and 36 ahead of Marco Bezzecchi. And then it's a whole different level after that. The results from the Dutch TT, Pecco Bagnaia wins by 1.223 seconds over Marco Bezzecchi, 1.925 seconds over Ali Espargaro. The top five were separated in less than 2 seconds. Brad Binder, Jorge Martin round out the top five. Alex Marquez, Luca Marini, Taka Nakagami, Franco Morbidelli, and Augusto Fernandez. Only 14 classified riders at the end of this race. God. Lorenzo Salvadori on a third Aprilia actually finished 10th or 11th. Everybody else there, Iker Lacuona was actually filling in for Repsol Honda. Didn't finish amongst a group that included Fabio Quartararo, Jack Miller, Johan Zarco, Maverick Vinales, Miguel Oliveira, and Anea Bastianini, who's had a nightmare year this year, and Fabio Di Gianantonio. Mention the points standings briefly. Yeah, Binder, Zarco round out the top five. Luca Marini in sixth. In Moto 2, the results there saw Jake Dixon get, I think, his first win in Moto 2. Ayagura, Pedro Acosta, who's likely going to be going to MotoGP next year. Fermin Aldeguer, Aaron Canet round out the top five. The Americans, Joe Roberts was 18th in front of his teammate by a couple hundredths of a second. And then Sean Dillon Kelly fell off late in the race there. So the point standings for Moto 2, Tony Arbolino up by 8 points on Pedro Acosta. Jake Dixon with that victory is now 44 points out of the lead. So really that's the battle. Alonso Lopez is on that edge. Roberts is 18th in points. SDK has not scored a point yet. The NHR or the IMSA 6 hours at the Glen, we'll get into that here momentarily. BMW benefits from the disqualification for Porsche post-race technical infraction. Skid block. It was a skid block issue, minimum thickness. So BMW number 25 for Connor D. Filippi and Nick Yellowly get their win, get the win in the 6 hours. Connor D. Filippi first win, both of theirs first win in the prototype category. Yellowly first win in the IMSA series, sixth overall for Connor D. Filippi. 31 Whelen Engineering Cadillac, Pippo Durrani, Alexander Sims, and Jack Aiken, and then Tom Blomqvist, Colin Braun in the Meyer Shank Acura. And in LMP2, George Kurtz, the founder of CrowdStrike, won the Pro-Am class with Colin Brown at Le Mans, then came back to Watkins Glen with Ben Hanley and current Indy next points leader Nolan Siegel to win the LMP2 category of 6 hours at the Glen. Then, so the win was Kurtz, and then Riley Motorsports LMP3 with Gar Robinson, Felipe Fraga, and Josh Burton won that category. In the GT Pro, Jack Hawksworth won over Hawksworth got the win, and for them, and Ben Barnicoat over Daniel Serra with Davide Rigon in the Risi Competizione Ferrari. Antonio Garcia and Jordan Taylor in the Corvette rounded out the podium. In GTD, the number 12 Lexus won with, or I guess, I don't know, whichever, I forget which one, 12 or 14, fuck cares. Aaron Telitz and Frankie Montecalvo, 12 car, there you go. first win for Monte Calvo in 3 years. Madison Snow and Brian Sellers and the Paul Miller Racing BMW second, and Corey Lewis. And then Jan Halen, Ryan Hardwick, Zachary Robichon in the Wright Motorsports Porsche round out the top 3 in GTD. Trying to go through the next race for IMSA will be at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, aka Mosport, the week of July 7th through 9th. So we'll get back to that and we'll see what's going on. We're getting in the meat of the schedule for the WeatherTech series here. All the points that are going on with that. NHRA at Norwalk, they were, all 4 categories were there. So let's get into that. The funny car. So Alex Laughlin blew up. That's why. Okay, that's the results from the Summit Racing Equipment Nationals. In you had Leah Pruitt winning Top Fuel, Blake Alexander in Funny Car, first Funny Car win for him. He's won in Top Fuel before. Matt Hartford's first Pro Stock win of the year. Hector Arana Jr.'s first Pro Stock motorcycle win of the year. For Leah Pruitt, she beat Kyle Wurtzel, Mike Salinas, Austin Prock, and Justin Ashley, who's been on a heater here recently. Ashley beat Clay Milliken, Steve Torrance, and Brittany Force to treat her to go and get that victory. She ran a slower laps time, but she had her faster speed. So that was that in terms of Top Fuel. In Funny Car, Blake Alexander was able to advance from the 12th spot by beating Tim Wilkerson, Alexis DeJoria, both of them red lit. Bob Tasca in the semifinals smoked his tires, and then Matt Hagan in a regular race there. Matt Hagan's had a solid year for sure. Hagan beat Dale Creasy Jr., Robert Height, J.R. Todd to advance to the finals. Pro Stock, Matt Hartford from the number 1 spot beat Fernando Quadra, Derek Kramer, Aaron Stanfield, and Dallas Glen with a 005 light. Glen was basically shut it off on the starting line after getting treed. Glenn beat Bo Butner, Erica Enders, Troy Coughlin Jr., who had mechanical problems prior to his final where he wasn't able to really do anything. Hector Arana Jr. had a really fast bike the whole weekend. Will go down. Hector Arana was a number 3 qualifier, beats Wesley Wells, Angie Smith, Matt Smith on his way to beat Steve Johnson in the final. Steve Johnson, coming off of a win a couple races ago, beat Chase Van Zandt, Eddie Krawick, and Gianna Evaristo, who actually beat Gage Herrera, who was late on the tree, didn't red light. He'd come off of running a 677 in the first round and then ran 698 in the second round. So surprising there. In terms of that for NHRA, Justin Ashley leads Steve Torrance by 97, Leah Pruitt by 106, Brittany Force by 136, and Austin Prock by 138. Funny Car, Matt Hagan leads Ron Capps by 4 points. The top 5 are separated by less than 100, 6 by 100 exactly. So that's somewhat competitive. Dallas Glen still leads. Hartford moves to second, 15 points out of Derek Kramer. And then in Pro Stock Motorcycle, Gage Herrera still holds a huge lead, 189 points on Hector Arana Jr., Steve Johnson third there. And then their schedule here for their next race will be the Mile High Nationals. So starting the Western Swing, so they'll have a few weeks off before that. Rally Kenya saw Sebastian Ogier win another rally race. No shock. Guys won, I don't know how many world championships. Ogier was able to lead a Toyota 1 through 4 in that scenario. Sebastian Ogier won by 6.7 seconds, so overall, so over Cali, defending world champion Cali Rovanpera, and then Alfred Evans third, Takamoto Katsuda fourth, Toyota, as I mentioned, gets the top four, Danny Sordo, best Hyundai in fifth, Tanak, best Ford in sixth. Top seven were Rally 1 cars. The next however many cars were, was it 1, 2, 3, 4 cars were Rally 2. Esa-Pekka Lappi finished 12th overall, so he didn't get any points in that, but probably got some points in the power stage. Go through Formula E at Portland. Actually was able to watch that race. Different announcers and stuff, but definitely more interesting race than the usual fare that you get with Formula E because they were on a permanent racetrack for that race. The results from Portland E-Prix, which looked like a super speedway race, to be fair, in NASCAR. Nick Cassidy by less than 0.3 of a second over Jake Dennis, who qualified on pole. Antonio Felix da Costa for Porsche. So Envision Andretti and Porsche, top three. Mitch Evans, Sebastian Buemi, top five. Maxi Gunther, and six for Maserati. Luca Di Grassi for Mahindra. Pascal Wehrlein, Norman Nato, and Robin Freins round out your top 10. Point standings, Pascal Wehrlein leads the Formula E World Championship right now. Or, no, actually, that's my fault. Jake Dennis leads by 1 point over Nick Cassidy. And then Wehrlein is at 12 and 16 points. Mitch Evans is in fourth. Jean-Eric Verne in fifth, 4 points ahead of Antonio Felix da Costa there in the standings. And then their next race is in over 2 weeks' time. The World Rally Championship has a gap, so does NHRA. So some of those series we won't be seeing for a little bit. F1 Academy at Zandvoort, I saw the highlights. Amda Al-Kabasi, Kabasi, that's how they pronounce it, so my fault. Amda Al-Kabasi got a couple of the wins there. Hamda Al-Kabasi got race 1 and race 2 race 3 wins, and Schreiner won race 2. Standings, Marta Garcia DNF'd in one of the races, so Hamda Al-Kabasi with 2 victories and then DNF in the middle while leading is now only 5 points behind. Buhler third, Nina Marti fourth, and Abby Pulling in fifth. World Superbikes will be back at Donington this coming weekend, and it's basically a Alvaro Bautista benefit, and that's World SBK. It's an Alvaro Bautista, Toprak Raskat-Lioku talking about BMW. So he's second in points, but he's going to be moving to BMW next year. The highest placed BMW right now is Garrett Gerloff in 13th. They haven't run since wherever the hell Emilia Romagna round was. Alvaro Bautista is 86 points ahead of Raskat-Lioku, and nearly double the amount of points that Andrea Locatelli has. So it's basically over. Going into Indy next, I mentioned Nolan Siegel winning LMP2, so he's progressing in that way. The standings, he's up by 40 points on Christian Rasmussen. Hunter McElroy is in third. Jacob Abel and Daniel Frost round out your top 5 in that class. They're heading to Mid-Ohio this coming weekend. FIM World Supercross GP, the first event, is taking place at in Welcome. So Chad Reed. Whatever. Who cares? He can't ride anymore. So they'll be racing in Birmingham in England this coming weekend. The riders for this series. Trying to go through. Doesn't show everybody, I guess. Or did they want to bring it up? Final Supercross. Abu Dhabi. Oh, lovely. 40 riders representing 9 countries. So, yeah. Team's final rosters. Craig Dag. Two new cars. I don't know what any of that crap is. So, yeah. So, Ken Roczen will be riding in World Supercross with Kyle Chisholm and on Suzuki's. Trying to see. They don't have the marks where, I guess, the colors, match for whatever bikes they're on. Colt Nichols and Joey Savacci for Rick Ware Racing. I think they're on Husqvarna's. Dean Wilson, Justin Brayton for Firepower Honda. I can't pronounce that guy's name. But his teammate is Justin Hill. It's a Kawasaki. Georgie Tixier for Honda. Nils with Kevin Morantz, an American. Greg Aranda, French guy. And Thomas Ramet for Team GSM Yamaha. Matt Moss, Australian rider. I don't know what bike that is. Cade Klassen for MDK. Thing on a Husky with Anthony Rodriguez. Cole Seeley riding for Moto Concepts Honda with Vince Freese. Grant Harlan and Josh Hill for Craig Dack Motorsports Yamaha. Okay, so there you go. So MDK Motorsports is KTM. Rick Ware Racing, it says Kawasaki and Yamaha, but I don't know. We'll clarify it more next week once we get some more information. Not all the guys that are running in the Supercross and Motocross Championship are running in this deal here. Getting to Formula 2, getting to the points, coming back to Spielberg for Austria, running back-to-back weeks here. Frederick Vesti, the points leader by 11 over Teo Pocher. Awasa third, Bierman fourth, Dennis Hauger fifth. Hauger to all the way out to Artur Leclerc is 21 points. So 5th to 13th is pretty close. There with the rumors about AlphaTauri and maybe a couple other rides being available. In Formula 3, the standings, Gabriel Bortoleto leads by 24 points on Marti Beganovic third, Gabriel Mini fourth, Paul Aaron fifth. The points are really close once you get past Gabriel Bortoleto. And they have back-to-back weeks going on as well for them. We don't really need the 7.5 minutes to preview the Austrian Grand Prix. It's become a track where Red Bull is dominant. I think we're both going to pick Max Verstappen, Josh, but I know I am. But I'll let you choose who you think is going to finish second and third. It is a sprint weekend this weekend, so qualifying on Friday with one practice, then they'll have another practice on Saturday with the sprint, and then you'll have the race on Sunday.
Well, I mean, it's a Red Bull home race here for the team, so I think it would really be disappointing if, obviously Verstappen's going to win. That's out of the question, right? But I think it would be disappointing if Sergio Perez did not take second to make it a 1-2 Red Bull finish there. So I will go Sergio Perez finishing in second on the podium, and I'm going to take Lewis Hamilton third. I think they've made improvements here as of late, and I think I think Mercedes think they'll have some good pace here this upcoming weekend, and I think he has a good chance, Lewis, of getting on the podium. So getting closer for Lewis, maybe have a better chance this season of getting a win if possible, but I think it's going to be all Red Bull this weekend for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I already said I picked Max Verstappen, but I'm going to go with what the trend has been here recently, which is Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton. It's more recency bias, but the fact is Alonso's been up there a good part of the year. And when Lewis has a car that can compete, he's running as far up front as he can. So those are my picks. I think the better battles are in the midfield, what some of these teams can do amongst themselves to make sure that they're able to compete with these top flight teams and get the kind of points they need to compete. Honda Indy 200, Mid-Ohio, classic course for IndyCar. It's a place where you need to be precise. Going off track is very detrimental, but then I think that's any track. But, when it comes to, you have to be very precise in IndyCar there because of how tight the confines are. Scott McLaughlin is the defending race winner there. Try to bring up average, so the best average finish, and it makes sense since that's who my pick was going to be. I'm going to pick Scott Dixon. He needs a win to kind of really set up a possible comeback, yet another comeback for a championship. Alex Palou's way up there, Mid-Ohio. And so after that, it's a really tough question. After that, I might as well. No, that's not chalk per se. Trying to see people who have won. None of those. Yeah, so I'm gonna go with Alexander Rossi second and Scott McLaughlin third. So we'll go Rossi second, McLaughlin third this coming weekend at Mid-Ohio. What say you, Josh?
Well, I'm going to continue to go with the hot hand here in IndyCar right now, and that's Alex Palou. Obviously, he 3 out of the last 4 races in this series, and just been completely dominant in all forms here. So I'm just going to pick him because I think he's right now hands-on the favorite to win the title. So I'll pick him. I'm going to go Joseph Newgarden second, and then I will also take McLaughlin in the Thirsty Threes in third place because he's been pretty good at this track as well.
So the Bus Boys or Bus Bros will round out the podium behind the runaway championship leader who looks like he's 12 and his dad looks like he's 14. I don't know what they're drinking in the island of Mallorca, but I think they need to send that out to us or wherever the hell they are in Spain for sure. Now the fun one. This next couple of weeks is going to be good on the show because a couple of wild card races coming up here. First is the XFinity race. That'll be the Loop 121, 43 for 38 spots going in there. You got Weatherman back in the 4-car. I don't know who they announced in the 07, if they have announced anybody. I think it's probably Stephen Parsons, it feels like. Or no, Spencer Pumpelly. Oh, there you go. Spencer Pumpelly will be in one of Ryan Eversley and Andy Lally's besties. Will be running in the 07. Joey Gase will be in the 08. Interesting. Justin Allgaier. Well, no, Justin Allgaier. The 10 for Colleague. Did they say anything about that? Did they say Adrian Allmendinger was going to run the 10 car?
It's going to be the car owner this time, Justin Marks, in the super one-off.
Oh, yeah, that's
Xfinity.
right. That's right. Trackhouse Racing co-owner Justin Marks will run an Xfinity race. He's running in TA1 these days to stay warm. So that's a good hire in that sense. Connor Mozak will be driving the 19 for Gibbs. Parker Chase will be in the 24 for Sam Hunt. Andre Castro probably going to start. They're probably going to fail to qualify. Alex LeBay for Emmerling Gase. Interesting. Fellow Canadian Alex Gwinnett will be driving the 36, which is usually the car that LeBay drives. Joe Graff back in the 38. Ryan Ellis in the 43 with Sage Karam Preston Pardis will be driving his family run number 50. Brad Perez will be driving the number 53 for Emerling Gase. Dawson Cram back for CHK in the 74. Miguel Paludo running the 88 for Brandt Energy and Junior Motorsports. Dexter Bean in the 91. And Brent Sherman making a return to NASCAR, or at least trying to, this weekend in RSS Racing 28. Car that Zane Smith last week with Stuart Haas help was able to run up front. Josh, you get first picks on the XFinity at Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be interesting, right? I mean, I think this series, obviously, we've seen the differences. We don't have to get into it or anything, but it should be interesting how these particular cars, kind of the old style design of stock car, comparing it to the next gen car, how this is going to perform on a street course. But it's kind of a wide open event, like you said. And in a way, I mean, I kind of lean towards the guys in this series who have road racing experience and everything. So yeah, this is gonna be interesting here. I'm gonna go on a pick here. I'm just gonna stick with the chalk pick here and go Justin Allgaier. He should have won at he should have won back in many road course races. So, and he's good at the road course.
And he has won road course races too.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna go with him here this weekend. I think he's got enough experience here on the street course, on road racing, to be able to navigate this course, which I think the challenge is going to be just how bumpy it is here. So yeah, I'll go with him. Wild card, you know what? I'll just go with Justin Marks here as the wild card.
Solid.
I think it's going to be a interesting one there because he's been doing Trans Am racing and he is a road racing guy. I mean, if you look at his career and everything, he spent a lot of time doing road racing, and his one Xfinity win did come on. I mean, it was on a road course, not a street course.
In the rain too.
In the rain too. So if he can get in the rain, I remember that one. That was a really, really wet day at Mid Ohio in 2016. So if he can get it done there, then he can probably get it done on the bumpy streets of Chicago. So be interesting to see how that one plays out.
Yeah, and then he doesn't have to worry as much. I don't know about the Trans Am. I think the TA1 cars are sequential, but he'll be okay running the H pattern. Won't be as big of a deal for him. But yeah, Allgaier's a steady pick. Can't really go wrong that way with him. For me, man, because it's a lot of regulars. It's not like there's really, it's really a hard choice. I mean, Custer's coming off of winning at Portland. That wouldn't be a bad idea. You got some of these guys, they really need a win to solidify their spot in the playoffs. Retzloff has been making a lot of progress here recently. I'm going to go Sheldon Creed as my winner, get his first career win, and then I'm going to go with Retzloff as my wild card. I mean, I think Retzloff, the more reps he gets, because he is a iRacing first guy, he didn't get into actual cars before he was on the sim. And so I think every rep, every lap is a learning experience for him. The Jordan Anderson team is not known for always having the best equipment, but they've had better equipment this year. On the notion that it becomes a demo derby, he could end up benefiting. And so, I mean, Creed needs to get a win as well, to be fair. We'll see what happens with that. One of these two races is going to be a destruction derby. Now, which one it is, to be determined. I'll go to the Cup Series race, which will be the Grand Park 220. Again, in the entry list, of course, Jimmy Johnson, as we mentioned earlier, will not be entered. So 37 cars in this field. Trying to see who. The TrackHouse 91, which will have multiple V8 Supercars champion Shane Van Gisbergen driving in the Project 91 machine. Jensen Button will be back this weekend with Jerry Kelly as his crew chief, and the Mobil 1 Ford for Rick Ware. Andy Lally will be driving the 51 for Rick Ware with Camping World sponsorship. Ty Dillon will be driving a Chicago White Sox car. Enhance Health for the 91. Worldwide Express for the 99. Just gonna go through here. Chastain with Advent Health. Dillon Bioethanol. Gear Wrench on Harvick's car. Elk Grove Village on Brad Keselowski. Celsius for Corey LaJoy. 3 Chi for Kyle Busch. William Clyde Elliott II with Hooters. Denny Hamlin in the Yahoo car. Was a Menards Dutch Boy for Hamlin. Briscoe back in the Mahindra car. Mentioned Mobil 1, Jensen Button. I don't know what that sponsor is for AJ Allmendinger, but we'll pretty much see him up front. We're going to go through the Carson Racing for Miracle, Chris Bell. McDonald's back on 23 for Darrell Walsh Jr. William Byron, Valvoline. I don't even know what that company is. That's on Haley's car. McDowell, Chicago Pneumatic Compressors. And then Todd Gillen, Generator Skills. Priest, Operating Engineers in 41. Baconator for Gagson. And then Draver for Eric Jones. Mariano Sonny D on O. Richards' car. And that's it. So, I mean, I don't think I could go wrong if I keep on doing this until it happens. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to go William Clyde Elliott, the second to win the inaugural street race in Chicago. And my wild card pick might surprise people based on certain performance and whatever lack of experience, but that's why it's a wild card. I'm going to choose Jensen Button as my wild card. So ended up picking the where was I at? Picking just randomly blanked out. My apologies. I said that Clyde. Okay, yeah, Clyde, and then Button as wild card. Yeah, Josh, you get to close the segment this week. Who are your picks for Chicago this weekend in Cup?
Sorry, didn't realize I was on mute there, trying to switch back between windows, but
no problem.
Yeah, looking at the entry lists and everything, but no, I think Tyler Reddick is gonna be the guy this weekend. I think he's been really good. Of course, last year 2 road course race or 3, 2 road course wins, and I think this year he's been phenomenal at that, winning at COTA. So I think he gets his second win of the season and second win with the 45 team here this weekend, and I think they get it done here. Wild card, I mean, you went with Jensen there, so I'll go with the other Wickware car here, Andy Lally in the 51 with Camping World sponsorship this weekend. So he's been pretty experienced with road racing as well, so and he knows how to get it done. Years of experience racing in sports cars, which very very similar to this type of cars. So let's see what he can get done here this weekend, racing in Chicago. So should be interesting, like I said, and I think with this car, how it handles, it should be interesting to see, especially with all the bumps and stuff in the streets of Chicago. And not sure if there's going to be much passing at all. I mean, we've seen the iRacing event at the, I guess, fake version of the Speedway before the street race before it became a thing. Kind of interesting design, but don't really think there was a whole lot of passing that manifested from that, based on what I've seen on all the iRacing clips and everything. It's kind of interesting how this track, became a thing out of iRacing, the design at least. I mean, I'm sure they had thought about the concept and everything beforehand, but the fact that, it was designed in iRacing first, and now it was a real racetrack now for the time being. Obviously, a temporary road course being set up and everything, but kind of crazy how that came about. We had North Wilkesboro come about because of iRacing effectively, and now we have this come out of because of iRacing. So, and plus the Atlanta Super Speedway was also simulated in iRacing. So, kind of crazy how the sim stuff comes out of that and becomes a reality in a way. So, yeah, kind of interesting. So we'll see how this one plays out. Should be interesting, but could be a new phase of NASCAR if it goes right and we see more street courses come about, on the schedule in the later seasons, whether it's at Chicago or other locations.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll come back next week for episode 176 of the GSP and definitely go over that amongst, of course, IndyCar, F1, and everything else that'll be going on. Josh, you definitely led into it there at the end, talking about all the tracks that have been in iRacing and in the sim world. So it's your time to shine. Let us know what's going on in the world of sim and gaming.
Yeah, of course. Like I mentioned, the iRacing, how much of a influence it's had on NASCAR, especially in the last 3 years and everything. So that's I don't really think they've really talked about that necessarily. I mean, I think a lot of people know that, but at least here, just how, I think North Wilkesboro, that was kind of manifesting a lot of fan energy that had been sitting there for years trying to get something to happen. But, I mean, this one literally came out of thin air in a way. So I feel like they haven't really stated just how significant that is. It came out of the sim into real life. But yeah, definitely a thing that has happened, and we're about to see it this upcoming weekend. But yeah, I mean, personally for me, yeah, last week did some iRacing at Indianapolis in the Gen 4 car, and definitely got to kind of experience going 200 miles an hour in the Cup car going into Turn 1 at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in Turn 3. Kind of interesting experience. Was a little bit on the slower end, trying to get a handle on it. Just was really loose in corner entry, corner exit, really loose. So still able to try to fight for position there at certain points, but yeah, it was definitely a tougher than I expected. Especially being used to kind of being flat out in the IndyCar and being able to use multiple lanes there. So definitely different experience there. I actually got ran over a couple of times because I guess I was on older tires and other guys were on newer tires and got ran over because they drove deeper into the corner than I did, and I was, I guess, in the way. And whatever. I don't really know why people can't do that, but can't go in the corner cleanly. You're responsible for passing the other guy in front of you and being able to make it a clean pass. But I don't know. That's my opinion. So got ran over a couple times, but it's whatever. It's been passed now there. And then also did some road racing, Watkins Glen, the GT4 class challenge, 30-minute timed race, and running on the boot configuration of Watkins Glen. So definitely fun there. GT4 cars with the BMW and Porsche, Lamborghini, I think, is another car class or car making that class. And then also had the Liger prototype, which I think is like basically the iRacing's LMP2 car that they run on there, and definitely kind of interesting running in the much slower GT cars, going up against the prototypers that are definitely seconds faster than us, and having to you're battling somebody for position in GT class, and you're in the boot, and going up, you have a prototype car coming up in your mirror, and you have to get out of the way and everything. So yeah, definitely kind of interesting having that experience because I haven't really raced, against a prototype car in iRacing, being in another class. So especially, with how fast those cars can be, got to be able to manage traffic and manage your own race and not impede the other classes race, especially if they're the ones that are much faster. So kind of interesting dynamic there, and definitely got a better understanding of multi-class road racing, especially with what we see in IMSA and other series that we talked about on here and everything. So yeah, that was fun. I think this week, of course, iRacing for iRacing. Let me pull up the schedule here. Touring touring car turn, the touring car challenge at Daytona on the road course, which that one, the Honda Civic is in that one, along with the Hyundai Elantra and our Audi RS3 and the Hyundai Velociter there. So that's always a good challenge. And the Honda Civic is, as I mentioned, Formula IR, which is Dallara's iRacing Formula car at Long Beach. Got the what's it called? The Formula Fords on the road course, Charlotte road course. So that should be interesting there. And you've got the GT4 Challenge, which is the one that I was talking about earlier, at Watkins Glen last week. Now that one's at Long Beach Street Circuit, so another challenge at Long Beach. You got MX5s at Oulton Park there, so that should be fun as always. You've got GT3 at Daytona Road Course, so as always fun to be able to race on different classes, different series on the Daytona course there. So it's pretty much all the ones available for road course racing there. Let me pull up the oval schedule here, which I think obviously we know that the Cup XFinity series is going to be at the Chicago Street Course there. So the NASCAR Class A, that's the Cup Series, and Class B at the Chicago Street Course. Obviously been on iRacing now for a few years, which debuted in 2021. NASCAR Class C, of course, the trucks at Chicagoland Speedway. Should be interesting there. Then you've got IndyCar Dallara IR18 at the 2009 Michigan International Speedway configuration, so before the repave in 2011. So that should be interesting with a little bit more action there, because it's a groove or worn out racetrack, so probably be similar to what we saw at Fontana and everything. So that should be interesting. Got the Gen 4 cars at Las Vegas this week, so should be interesting there. You've got the Legend cars at Daytona on the oval, so 2008 oval. So expect a lot of drafting, a lot of racing there, and of course ran that one a bunch. So looking forward to being able to have some time to be able to do that. And then you've got, let's see what else is on here. Short tracks, you've got Cars Tour at Myrtle Beach. Of course, Myrtle Beach no longer existing in real life, so this will be a chance for for short trackers who miss racing there in real life, being able to hop on the sim and race in the preserved version of this speedway. So always a good opportunity to be able to do that there. So that's it for me. iRacing, lots of opportunities, and of course, like I said, with Chicago Speedway with Chicago Street Course and Chicagoland, of course, nobody races there anymore. So obviously an opportunity, whether you're in trucks or Xfinity or Cup, to try any of those tracks. So we'll see Chicago Street Course this weekend, if it looks like what they ran on iRacing a couple years ago, if it looks better than that, or if iRacing made it look too good to be true, relatively speaking. So we'll see what it looks like this weekend. But that's it for me. As always, when stream Twitch TV/USailor2, go on there and watch whenever I stream. So I'll post a link when it's live, and hopefully have an opportunity to watch or catch a stream. So there's that. And of course Twitter, at JP Huffine, go on there and see all my takes and everything on what I have to say in motorsports and sports in general. Of course, this past week was the NCAA College World Series for men's baseball, and Florida Gators were in it and ended up losing in Game 3. After Game 2, they had a big win, and 24-4 over the LSU Tigers, and then Game 1 going into extra innings and then losing by 1 run to LSU, and then gave it all up on last night against the Tigers, and lost I think 19-3 or something like that. So, or no, 14-4. So unfortunate showing, but at least they made it to the College World Series, and it was kind of fun. Hadn't really watched college baseball really until now, and seeing the Gators making into the college finals and everything. So that was kind of cool. But definitely talked about that one on Twitter. But of course, our channel, Grip Share Podcast YouTube, go in there, subscribe. Of course, go in there, watch or listen in the background, however you want to do that. So definitely go in there and look at our channel and like, subscribe, and interact with us. So yeah, that's it for this week. Of course, always glad to be on the show, and being able to discuss all the things that happen in motorsports, and looking forward to being able to do that next week, of course. And we've got Independence Day coming up next week, so early happy Independence Day to everybody. And of course, we'll be seeing it again next week, of course, because it'll probably be Independence Day when we do this. So as always, glad to be able to do it.
Absolutely, man. We do this thing. We kept it going. We keep it going 4+ years now, doing this deal. So 175 episodes. Tell people about it. People are impressed, to have a show that keeps going. And so I mean, pre-Independence Day, definitely. We'll talk about that. If the way the timing works, we'll probably be doing it. So that'll be something. We'll come back next week and recap all the motorsports of the week and what happened at Chicago in the street course and IndyCar Mid-Ohio Formula One Austria Grand Prix. Roundup partially the last 4 bits there that I mentioned from this week. Then IMSA will be back at Mosports, Supercross at Townsville. They keep on trying to do BOP or whatever to make sure that Ford can actually compete. They need to do it in NASCAR too. Extreme E will be back, Island E Pre, and then WEC and F1 Academy at Monza. So that'll be interesting. And then I messed up. Yeah. So, British Grand Prix preview for Formula One, Cup and XFinity at Atlanta, with the Tate Fogelman algorithm coming back out of out of the hibernation in the mothballs, wherever it lays in the stratosphere when it's not being used. You can find me at PG Matthew 28 on Twitter. You can find me at Philip G Matthew 28 Philip G Matthew 28 on Instagram. You can find the Gripster podcast basically anywhere you hear podcasts, but as Josh mentioned, you can find it on our YouTube page at the Gripster podcast YouTube page. See the videos, video feeds of our shows. You can go and listen to the show as well. You can find the podcast on Apple, but you can also Apple, Amazon Music, etc. But you can also find it on philipgmatthew.com, my blog site. And so we'll be back, episode 176 next week for the GSP, and keep on going with this deal, Independence Day version, possibly next week. So for Josh, I'm Phil. Take care, and we'll see you around the other side.